Here's a refined overview of Maj. General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse, a senior leader in the French Air and Space Force. Here are the career highlights of Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse, a senior officer in the French Air and Space Force. Career highlights of Maj. Général Pierre Stéphane Vaysse, promotion 2022, promoted to Général de Brigade aérienne, Air Brigadier Général, 2024, promoted to Général de Division aérienne, Air Major Général, effective 1 August 2024. Key leadership. Roles 2024 present. Appointed sous-chef d'état-major, activities, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, French Air and Space Force.
Responsible for Operational Readiness Force deployment, strategic planning and modernization of air operations prior to 2024. Held key staff and command positions, including strategic planning roles at État-Major de l'Armée de l'Air et de DT.
L'espace leadership in defense activity coordination and force projection, doctrinal influence, a strong advocate for mass-produced, cost-efficient weapons systems. E.g. drones, to support high-end platforms like the Rafale. Promotes adaptable air power strategy to meet challenges of multi-domain, high-intensity warfare. Strategic engagement, participated in international and national defense briefings, such as 2025 Aerospace Defense Panel, discussed the role of economical drone fleets to augment elite systems. Consistently pushes for a resilient, scalable defense posture. Here is a breakdown of Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse's ranks and promotions. Promotion context, promotions, aligned with Vaysse's increasing responsibility in strategic planning and operational command. His 2024 promotion accompanied his appointment as Deputy Chief of Staff Activités, a high-level role shaping the French Air and Space Force's future combat posture. Here's an overview of the various officer ranks that Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse would have held during his progression through the French Air and Space Force based on the typical French military career path. Likely career path for Vaysse. While not all specific dates are public, Vaysse, most likely, graduated from the École de l'Air, French Air Force Academy, in the early 1990s. Progressed steadily through command and staff roles, gaining leadership experience. Entered general officer ranks in 2022, which marked the beginning of his senior leadership era. Here's a detailed list of positions held by Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse during his career in the French Air and Space Force. Positions held by Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse, 2024, présente sous-chef d'état-major. Activité, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, French Air and Space Force Headquarters appointed. 1 August 2024, responsible for Operational Planning and Readiness Force. Deployment and training cycles, integration of emerging technologies, e.g. drones, electronic warfare. Coordination with joint and allied commands, 2022-2024 General Officer, Air Force Staff, État-Major de l'Armée de l'Air et de l'Espace. Rank, Général de Brigade aérienne, Brigadier Général, oversaw. Strategic capability development, played a key role in defense transformation planning, advocated for scalable force models using low-cost platforms, e.g. drones alongside Rafales. Prior to 2022, roles not publicly listed in full but likely included. Base Commander or Wing Commander, Managed Operational Airbase or Combat Wing Staff Officer, Plans and Strategy, involved in operational. Doctrine Development Instructor, Training Officer. Possibly served as trainer for junior officers or pilots, international liaison or defense attaché role, common for officers on command track. Institutional ties, likely an alumnus of the École de l'Air, French Air and Space Force Academy, involved in inter-service coordination, especially in domains like aerospace defense and multi-domain operations. Here is a breakdown of Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse's strategic outlook and public engagement. Strategic outlook. Major General Vaysse is a vocal proponent of adapting air and space doctrine to modern high-intensity threats through balance of high-tech and mass advocates pairing cutting-edge platforms, e.g. Rafale jets, A400M, with cost-effective mass-produced systems. Loitering munitions. Combat drones, attritable air power platforms, emphasizes sustainability in prolonged conflict. Smart use of resources to maintain operational endurance. Multi-domain. Integration supports full integration of air, space, and cyber domains. Combined arms and joint force operations stresses interoperability with NATO and EU allies, particularly in emerging technologies and airspace dominance. Resilient force posture encourages shifting from a few exquisite systems model to a layered defense strategy. Blend of elite, survivable platforms, swarm-capable, expendable technologies. Public engagement, 2025 Defense Briefing. Lyon urged policymakers to accelerate drone integration and rethink luxury defense strategies. Quoted saying, "The future is not just precision, it's availability, quantity, and adaptability." Frequent themes in his public statements: importance of military-industrial agility, call for faster procurement cycles, readiness for peer and near-peer adversary scenarios, defense community engagement, known participant in French MOD strategic working groups, EU-NATO interoperability discussions, aerospace and defense innovation panels. Would you like to see some of his public statements, or a quote summary related to drone warfare, strategic procurement, or defense sustainability? Here's a concise overview of MAGI. General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse's major responsibilities, especially in his current role as Deputy Chief of Staff, activities in the French Air and Space Force. Major responsibilities. Operational readiness and force deployment ensures the combat readiness of all Air and Space Force units. Oversees deployment cycles, unit rotations, and contingency planning. Leads joint force coordination for air-centric operations. Strategic planning and doctrine development. Develops and updates doctrine for future air, space, and multi-domain warfare. Aligns operational concepts with national defense strategy and NATO commitments. Directs scenario planning for high-intensity conflict environments, capability modernization and force transformation advocates, and oversees integration of drone systems loitering. Munitions electronic warfare platforms coordinates adoption of cost-effective technologies to support scalability and redundancy in conflict. Multi-domain and allied integration supports airspace cyber synchronization across French and coalition forces. Plays a key role in joint European defense planning and interoperability frameworks with NATO. Policy advising and defense. Outreach advises senior defense leadership on procurement priorities. Operational design crisis response frameworks, represents the Air and Space Force in public defense forums, think tanks, and interagency briefings. General Officer, Air Force Staff, French Air and Space Force Headquarters. Major General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse was officially appointed to a senior operational leadership role in the French Air and Space Force, as follows. Role and authority entrusted. With high-level responsibilities in operational readiness, deployment, and joint force coordination. Holds delegation of signature from the Chief of Staff since 26 September 2024, enabling authorization for security and aerodrome-related decisions on behalf of the Minister Official Promotion, concurrently promoted from Général de Brigade aérienne, Air Brigadier General, to Général de Division aérienne, Air Major General, effective 1 August 2024, via 4 July 2024 decree. Here's an analysis of MAGI. General Pierre Stéphane Vaysse's significance within the French Air and Space Force Staff. Significance within the Force Staff, État-major de l'armée de l'air et de l'espace. A sous-chef d'état-major activité, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, Major. General Vaysse occupies one of the most strategically critical positions in the French Air and Space Force's General Staff structure, top-tier operational authority. He is the principal architect of operational activity, overseeing force readiness. Deployment planning, tactical execution of air and space missions, directly supports and advises the Chief of Staff of the Air and Space Force, CMAAE, on operational priorities. Bridge between policy and action. Vaysse translates strategic directives from the Ministry of the Armed Forces into concrete operational plans, ensures synchronization of Air, Space, and Cyber Operations Inter-Service, Army-Navy, and NATO joint exercises. Central role in modernization drives the adoption of emerging technologies, e.g., drones, loitering munitions, electronic warfare platforms. Shapes the next-generation force structure by aligning doctrine, procurement, and operations with the challenges of high-intensity conflict. 4. Continuity and resilience. The Activité Bureau is responsible for the daily functioning of air operations. Vaysse ensures smooth command handoffs, crisis readiness, long-term sustainability of operations during extended deployments. 5. Influence on national and allied strategy represents the Air and Space Force in joint and multinational forums. His bureau directly contributes to France's NATO force commitments, EU joint air defense planning, Indo-Pacific and Sahel regional posturing organizationally. He leads one of the 4 main divisions of the Air and Space Force's General Staff, Force Staff Pillars, sous-chefferie. Synthèse, synthesis, coordination. Activité, opération, Vaysse 3. Préparation de l'avenir, future planning. Relations extérieures, external relations.